You expect us to believe you found something tied to $30 million outside this bank, and you did not take one thing?
The question hit Somto Nwosu harder than an insult. Only that morning she had been counting the last naira in her purse, wondering how she would pay her daughter's school fees. Then, in the rain outside a Lagos bank, she saw a sealed black pouch near the service lane. Across the label were words that made her stop breathing. USD 30,000. Somto could have walked away. She could have opened it. Nobody was standing beside her. Instead, she carried it straight back inside. But hours later, the same people who should have thanked her were staring at her as if poverty itself was evidence of theft. What Somto did not know was that somebody inside that bank desperately needed the pouch to remain missing. And one small receipt in her handbag was about to destroy everything he had planned. So don't miss what happens next. Before we continue, tell us in the comments where you're watching from and your local time right now. And if you enjoy powerful African stories about dignity, courage, and justice, subscribe to the channel, because Somto returned $30 million, and that was when her real trouble began. 3 hours earlier, the rain had started while Somto was arranging boiled eggs inside a plastic tray. Not proper rain at first, just those irritating drops that make you look at the sky and argue with it. "Please, not today," she muttered. The sky did not care. Within 5 minutes, the road outside Atlantic Crest Bank in Victoria Island had turned dark with water. Office workers ran under awnings. Dispatch riders bent over their bikes. A woman in heels held her handbag above her head, as if leather could catch rain for her. Somto pulled the blue tarpaulin farther over her breakfast stand. The stand was not much: a folding table, 2 coolers, 1 silver flask of tea, bread wrapped in clear nylon, boiled eggs, a kara in a covered bowl. Small takeaway packs of jollof rice she sold to security men who started work before sunrise and forgot breakfast existed until their stomachs began shouting. She had been there for 11 months, long enough to know who wanted 2 sugars in tea, who was pretending to be on a diet, who bought on credit, and suddenly became blind when payday came. Madam Somto, a young security guard, called from under the bank canopy. "Keep 1 bread and egg for me. I will pay by 10. You said 10 yesterday." He grinned. "Today's own is a serious 10. Your 10 has no father and mother." He laughed and disappeared through the side door. Somto smiled despite herself. Then her phone buzzed. She wiped her fingers on her apron before checking it. The message was from Faith School. "Reminder, outstanding term balance must be settled before Monday. Pupils with unpaid activity fees may not participate in the science exhibition." Somto read it once, then again. The amount sat at the bottom, 86,500. She opened her purse. There was 20,700 inside, including money meant for fresh supplies the next morning. On her phone, her account balance was worse. She closed the banking app, opened it again. As if numbers could become ashamed and rearrange themselves, they did not. "Mummy?" Faith's voice came through a call before Somto could put the phone away. Somto answered quickly. "Why are you calling? Aren't you in class?" "We are on break. Auntie Ruth gave me her phone." A pause. "Mummy," they said, "the science exhibition is Monday." Somto looked at the rain bouncing off the gutter. "Yes, I saw the message. I can still go, right?" There were questions children asked because they wanted information. And there were questions they asked because they already knew the answer and were begging you to change it. Somto pressed 2 fingers against her forehead. "You will go to class first. We will talk when you come home." "Mummy, what?" "I already made the volcano." Somto shut her eyes. Of course she had. For 1 week, the kitchen table had carried a crooked cardboard mountain, painted brown and green. Faith had mixed baking soda in an old seasoning container and kept warning her mother not to touch the chemicals. "I know," Somto said quietly. "I saw your volcano nearly take over my whole table." Faith giggled. That sound made the amount on the screen feel larger. "Go back to class. I will handle it." You promised. Somto hated that word when money was involved. Still, she said, "Go back to class." Faith knew her mother well enough not to ask twice. The call ended. Somto stood there for a moment with the phone in her hand. Then the rain became heavier. A gust of wind pushed water beneath the tarpaulin. She grabbed the bread basket and moved it back. 2 boiled eggs rolled toward the edge of the tray. Today wants to fight me personally? She caught one egg. The other dropped. It hit the ground and split. Somto stared at it. 1 egg. 350 gone. That was how her mind worked these days. Every broken thing arrived already converted to money. A little after 9, the rain eased. The road began to wake again. A white courier van pulled away from the service lane beside Atlantic Crest Bank. Somto barely noticed it. She was tying a nylon bag for a customer when something black near the edge of the pavement caught her eye. At first, she thought it was a laptop sleeve. She finished with the customer, collected payment, then looked again. The black object was still there. Water ran around it but not over it. Thick material, zip-sealed. A clear plastic window fixed to one side. Somto stepped from behind her stand. "Whose bag is this?" she called. Nobody answered. 2 men were arguing over parking farther down. A dispatch rider was checking his tire. The bank's side entrance had closed again. Somto walked closer. There was a strip across the pouch with a printed serial number and a tamper seal. She bent without touching it. The label inside the clear window read, Atlantic Crest Bank, copper rate, escrow operations, USD 30 million thousand release dementation, controlled handling. Somto straightened. For several seconds, she simply stood there. $30 million. She knew enough to know the pouch did not contain $30 million in cash. Nobody was leaving that kind of money beside a gutter like leftover bread. But whatever documents were inside clearly controlled something enormous. Her eyes went back to her phone, $86,500, the school balance. Then the pouch, $30 million. She gave a small, humorless laugh. God has jokes. A man walking past slowed down. "You lost something?" "No." He looked at the pouch. Somto moved 1 step closer to it. "Then leave it there," the man said, and kept walking. Easy advice. Somto looked toward the bank. She had grown up around enough stories to know that finding something expensive could become a blessing in the morning, and a police statement by evening. She did not touch the pouch immediately. Instead, she took out her phone and photographed it where it lay. 1 picture wide enough to show the service lane, another close enough to show the seal number. Then she switched to video. "My name is Somto Nwosu," she said, feeling slightly foolish. "I am outside Atlantic Crest Bank service lane. I found this black sealed pouch here now. I have not opened it. I am taking it to the security desk." She turned the camera toward the bank clock, visible through the glass frontage. 9:17 a.m. Only then did she lift the pouch. It was lighter than she expected. Documents, maybe a device, maybe keys. She did not know. She tucked it under her arm and walked toward the service entrance. The same young security guard who owed her for bread and egg opened the door halfway. "Madam Somto, vendors cannot enter from here. I found something." "What?" She raised the pouch. His smile vanished. "Where did you get that?" "Outside." "Outside where?" She pointed. He opened the door wider. "Wait." He spoke into his radio. Within 2 minutes, 3 people had appeared. The first was another security officer. The second was a young woman Somto had seen buying tea twice, but had never spoken to properly. She wore a cobalt blue blazer and carried a thin notebook. The third man arrived without hurrying. Charcoal suit, white shirt, ruby red tie, clean beard trimmed so sharply it looked measured. He did not look at Somto first. He looked at the pouch. "Give me that," he said. Somto held it out halfway, then stopped. "Are you the person I should give it to?" The man looked at her now. "Yes. Your name?" His eyebrows moved slightly. "Sani Johnson, Operation Control." Somto nodded. "Okay. Please write that you collected it from me." The young guard snorted before he could stop himself. Sani turned his head. The guard immediately became serious. "What?" Sani asked Somto. "A receipt. For what? For this. It belongs to the bank. I know. That is why I am returning it to the bank." "Then return it." "I will. Please write that I returned it." For the first time, irritation entered Sani's face. Not anger, not yet. Just the look of a man who had pressed a lift button and could not understand why the door had not opened. "Madam, this is a controlled bank item." You cannot stand here holding it while asking staff to write private notes. Somto glanced at the young woman in the blue blazer. What is private about writing that you collected your own property? The security guard looked down. His mouth twitched. Sunny saw it. His voice cooled. Tola. The young woman straightened. Sir, take the pouch. Tola reached for it. Somto did not release it yet. Your name is Tola? Yes. Tola Adebayo, compliance support. Please, Tola, check the seal before I give you. Tola's eyes flicked towards Sani. Something passed across her face. Fast, then she looked at the pouch properly. Seal appears intact, she said. Write the number. Sani exhaled through his nose. Madam, no offense, sir. If I leave here now and tomorrow somebody says the bag was open, who will they believe? Nobody answered, so Somto continued. You people have cameras. You have uniforms. You have office. Me, I have my mouth. Let me carry one paper with my mouth. Tola looked at her for a second longer than necessary. Then she opened the notebook. What time did you find it? 9:17. I have video. Sani's eyes shifted. Tiny movement. Somto noticed because she was watching him now. Where exactly? Tola asked. Beside the service lane. Near the gutter, after that white courier van left. Tola wrote it down. She copied the seal number. She noted that the pouch was externally dry except for rain spots. Zip closed, tamper strip unbroken. Then she tore the page neatly and signed beneath the notes. Please sign here too, she told Sani. Sani looked at her. Is that necessary? You are receiving officer, sir. A pause. Then he signed. Somto finally released the pouch. Tola gave her the paper. Somto photographed it before folding it. Sani watched her do that. Anything else? He asked. Somto tucked the receipt into the inside pocket of her sky-blue apron. Yes. His eyes narrowed. My bread and egg is getting cold outside. The guard coughed into his fist. Tola looked down quickly. Somto turned and left. She had no idea that in less than 5 hours, Sani Johnson would wish he had refused to sign his name. By noon, Somto had sold almost everything. Rain always helped tea sales. People who would normally walk past suddenly remembered they needed something hot in their lives. She was packing the empty egg tray when 2 security officers came to her stand. Not the young one who owed her money. Older men, serious faces. Madam Somto? Yes? Management wants to speak with you inside. She looked at the bank. For what? The item you found. I already returned it. We know. Something in the man's tone made her put the lid on the tea flask slowly. Am I in trouble? We were only asked to bring you. That answer was worse than no. She called the woman who sold fruit 2 stalls away. Please watch my things. Where are you going? Bank. The woman's eyes widened. Money problem? Somto looked at the glass building, apparently. Inside, they did not take her to the public banking hall. They took her upstairs, cold air conditioning, grey carpet, walls with framed photographs of executives shaking hands with other executives. Somto became conscious of her wet sandals. Not ashamed, conscious. There is a difference. A receptionist looked at her apron, then at the officers escorting her. That second look lasted half a beat too long. Somto filed it away. She was led into a small meeting room. Sani sat at one end of the table. Beside him was a woman from security and another man from operations. Tola was not there. A bottle of water waited in front of an empty chair. Somto remained standing. Please sit, Sani said. She sat. The security woman introduced herself as Mrs. George. We just need to clarify a few things about the pouch you returned this morning. Okay. What time did you say you found it? 9:17. You are certain? Yes. How? My phone showed the time. The bank clock was also in my video. Sani folded his hands. You recorded the pouch before returning it? Yes. Why? Somto looked at him. Because it said $30 million. The operations man shifted in his chair. Mrs. George asked, Did you open it? No. Did you try to open it? No. Did anyone else touch it while it was outside? I don't know what happened before I saw it. Sani leaned forward. But you were in that area all morning. My stand is not in the service lane. You can see the service lane from your stand. Yes, so you would have seen the courier van arrive. Maybe, did you? Somto thought. I saw a white van leave. I don't know when it arrived. The operations man wrote something. Then Mrs. George asked the question from the hook. You expect us to believe you found something tied to $30 million outside this bank, and you did not take one thing. Somto stared at her. There it was. Not a question about the seal, not a question about the van, a question about her. The kind that came with a hidden second sentence. You are poor. Of course you took something. Somto looked down at her hands. Her nails had a little orange stain from pepper sauce. One finger had a small burn from hot oil. Then she looked back up. What exactly was I supposed to take? Mrs. George blinked. The contents. You know what was inside? Yes, I did not. You saw the value. I saw writing on the outside. And you were not curious? Sani asked. Somto almost laughed. Of course I was curious. That answer seemed to surprise them. She continued. I am not a saint. I am a woman owing school fees. When I saw $30 million, I looked twice. Nobody moved. But looking twice and stealing are not the same thing. Sani tapped one finger on the table. You said you have a video. Yes. We will need your phone. No. The room changed. Sani's face hardened. You said you recorded evidence connected to bank property. I can show you the video. I will not give you my phone. Mrs. George spoke more carefully. Madam Somto, nobody is accusing you. We are trying to establish facts. Good, then establish them with me here. She opened the video. They watched. Her voice sounded thinner on the phone speaker than she remembered. My name is Somto Nwosu. I am outside Atlantic Crest Bank Service Lane. I found this black sealed pouch here now. I have not opened it. The camera moved to the bank clock. 9:17. Sani's jaw tightened, just once. Somto saw it. Mrs. George asked her to send the video to an official email address. Somto did, then she sent it to herself again from another account. Sani noticed. You are very careful, he said. Somto slid the phone back into her bag. I cannot afford not to be. The interview lasted 40 minutes. By the end, Somto knew one thing for certain. Something was wrong. Not because they questioned her. A bank had every right to ask how sensitive property ended up in a roadside gutter. It was the shape of the questions. Too much interest in whether she had been tempted. Too little interest in how the pouch got outside. When she left the meeting room, Tola was standing near the printer down the hall. Their eyes met. Tola looked away first. Somto walked past. Then she heard quick footsteps behind her. Madam Somto! She stopped. Tola came closer, but kept her voice low. Do you still have the receipt I gave you? Somto touched the inside pocket of her apron. Yes, keep it. Somto waited. Tola glanced toward the meeting room door. That is all. No, Somto shook her head. That is not all. Tola's mouth tightened. I cannot discuss anything. Then why did you run after me to say something anybody with sense already knows? Tola almost smiled. Almost. Then her face closed again. Just keep it. She walked away. Somto watched her go. At 4:35 that afternoon, Somto was wiping down her table when a black Toyota stopped near the curb. The rear window lowered. Sani sat inside. He did not wave. Madam Somto, can I speak with you? She looked around. Most office workers had gone. The fruit seller was packing up. 2 dispatch riders were smoking near the junction. Somto stayed where she was. You can speak. Sani opened the door and stepped out. Without the cold bank room around him, he looked less official. That made him more dangerous, not less. He held a slim brown envelope. You have had a stressful day. I have had worse. I heard about your daughter. Somto's hand stopped on the tablecloth. What about my daughter? School fees, activity balance. Her face did not change, but something inside her went still. How do you know that? Sani gave a small shrug. People talk. You have customers. You take calls outside. Somto stared at him. He placed the envelope on the table. This is not anything improper. Just appreciation. You protected bank property worth a great deal of money. Somto did not touch it. How much? Enough to settle the school issue and give you breathing room. Why not give it to me inside the bank? His smile disappeared. You like making simple things complicated. No. I like understanding things before I collect them. He lowered his voice. There is one small issue with your statement. There it was. Somto crossed her arms. What issue? The location. You said you found the pouch beside the service lane. Yes. It may be more accurate to say you found it farther down the road. Why? Because that is likely where it fell. I did not find it there. Sani exhaled. Madam, nobody is asking you to lie. You are asking me to say I saw something I did not see. I am asking you to avoid creating confusion from a detail you cannot be completely certain about. Somto pointed toward the bank. I have a video of where I picked it. That video begins after the pouch was already on the ground. Yes, so you cannot say how it got there. I never said how it got there, you see? No, I don't see. His patience thinned. The time is another matter. You may have found it closer to 9:30. It was 9:17, according to a clock visible after you began recording. Somto gave him a long look. What is inside this envelope? Appreciation. For changing where I found the pouch and what time I found it. Sani's eyes sharpened. Be careful how you phrase things. Somto pushed the envelope back with one finger. No, sir. You be careful what you ask poor people to sign with their hunger. For the first time, his face lost control, only for a second. Then the smoothness returned. He picked up the envelope. You think this bank will protect you because you returned one pouch? I did not ask the bank to protect me. Good. His smile came back, but there was nothing friendly in it, because institutions protect themselves. Somto looked at him. And people? Sani opened the car door. People should learn when to stop being difficult. He got in. The Toyota drove away. Somto stood beside her little breakfast table, one hand resting on a dented silver flask. She waited until the car turned the corner. Then she reached into her apron pocket and touched the folded receipt. Not because she needed reassurance, because she was beginning to understand what it was worth. The first thing Somto did when she got home was not tell Faith about the $30 million. She took off her wet sandals, washed her hands, and opened the pot of stew she had made 2 nights before. Faith sat at the table with her school notebook open and the cardboard volcano beside it. Mummy, see, I added trees. Somto looked. 3 toothpicks with green paper stuck to them leaned around the volcano. One tree is falling. It is because of erosion. Is that what your teacher said? No, I said it. Somto laughed under her breath. Professor Faith smiled and went back to coloring. Somto served rice into 2 plates. She kept hearing Sani's voice. Institutions protect themselves. People should learn when to stop being difficult. She had heard versions of that sentence all her life. At a landlord's office when a leaking roof ruined 2 bags of clothes. At a clinic when a receptionist told her to be patient after 3 hours because people who came later had bigger envelopes. At a former job when a supervisor removed money from her pay and called it a correction she should be grateful was not worse. People with desks always seemed surprised when people without desks wanted records. Faith pushed a cup toward her. Mummy, you are not eating. Somto looked down. She had been turning rice with her spoon without taking one bite. I'm eating. Your face is doing that thing. What thing? The one when you are calculating money in your head. Somto stared at her daughter. Children were rude in the most accurate ways. How do you know I am calculating money? Because your mouth becomes small. Somto tried not to smile. Faith copied the expression, squeezing her lips until they almost disappeared. Like this. Eat your food. Faith laughed. Somto took a bite. Then Faith said, Auntie said if I don't pay the activity fee, I can still come to school. I just cannot bring the volcano. The rice became harder to swallow. Who told you that? Teacher Miriam. And what did you say? I said my mummy will pay. Somto put the spoon down. Faith's eyes dropped immediately. I'm not angry, Somto said. The girl looked up. I will speak with your teacher tomorrow. Okay. Somto could have told her about the envelope. Enough money, Sani had said. Enough to settle the school issue and give you breathing room. She did not know the exact amount because she had refused to touch it. That bothered her more than she expected. Not because she wanted it now, because hunger liked numbers. If the envelope had contained us 200,000, she could imagine rent. If yours 300,000, school fees plus stock. If yours 500,000, maybe she could replace the second-hand freezer that died in June and stop buying ice every morning. Her mind did the arithmetic without asking permission. Somto hated that. She stood, carried the plates to the sink, and turned on the tap harder than necessary. Faith watched from the table. Mummy? Did something happen today? Somto rinsed a plate. Yes. Bad. Not yet. That was the most truthful answer she had. At 6:12 the next morning, Somto arrived at her usual spot and found a laminated notice tied to the railing beside it. Temporary access restriction. Unauthorized vending within this zone is suspended pending sicker review. She read it twice. Then she looked at the other vendors. The fruit woman was setting up as usual. A man who sold phone accessories had his table out. A woman with roasted corn was already fanning charcoal. Only Somto's place had red tape across it. She walked to the estate security post. The supervisor, Mr. Daniel, was inside writing in a logbook. Good morning. He looked up and immediately looked uncomfortable. Madam Somto, why is my place blocked? He scratched beside his ear. There is an instruction. From who? Management. What management? He sighed. Please, don't make this difficult for me. Somto almost laughed. The phrase had traveled fast. I am asking a simple question. There was a security incident yesterday. Yes. I found bank property and returned it. They said until review is complete, your vending access should be suspended. Who said, madam? Who? Mr. Daniel lowered his voice. Atlantic Crest contacted estate management. Somto stood very still. And the other vendors? The instruction mentioned you. There it was. No accusation, no written offense, just a closed gate. Give me the instruction. I cannot give you internal correspondence. Then give me something showing why I cannot work. He rubbed his face. You really like paper, yes. Why? Because mouths change, mister. Daniel looked at her for a moment. Then he tore a page from a duplicate incident pad and wrote that her access had been suspended pending review following communication from Atlantic Crest Bank. He signed it. Somto photographed it. Thank you. You are thanking me. You wrote what happened. He shook his head. Madam Somto, I hope you know what you are doing. So do I. She carried her coolers 2 streets away. The place was worse. Less foot traffic. No office gate. No shade. By 9 o'clock, she had sold 7 cups of tea and 4 bread and egg packs. Normally, she would have sold triple that. A man in a mechanic's shirt bought her Cara and asked why she had moved. Rent increase? No police? No fight? He laughed. Then what remains? Somto gave him his change. $30 million. He stopped laughing. She did not explain. By 11:30, the sun had turned the pavement into punishment. Her tea went lukewarm. 2 packs of rice spoiled before she could sell them. When she finally counted the day's money, she had made less than half her usual morning sales. That afternoon, her cousin Bisi came to the room after hearing part of the story from another vendor. Bisi had the rare talent of entering any room as if she owned the chairs. You found what? Documents. Tied to how much? Somto folded clothes on the bed. $30 million. Bisi slapped both hands on her head. Jesus, lower your voice. 30 million American dollars? Yes. And you carried it back? Yes. Like that? It was not cash. I did not ask whether it was cash. I asked whether your brain was present. Faith looked up from the floor where she was cutting paper for her project. Auntie Bisi. Sorry, baby. Bisi lowered her voice by almost nothing. Somto, do you know how much $30 million is? No. Please calculate it for me so I can suffer properly. Bisi ignored the sarcasm. And now they pushed you away from your selling place? Yes. After you returned their thing? Yes. Did they give you anything? No. Somto hesitated. What? Somebody offered something later. Bisi sat up. How much? I didn't open it. You didn't what? He wanted me to change my statement. Bisi stared. What change? Where I found the pouch. Time also. And you refused the money? Yes. Bisi got up and walked to the window. She stood there with both hands on her waist. You know what your problem is? I have many. Choose one. You think being correct will protect you. Somto stopped folding. Bisi turned. It won't. People with money can be wrong for 6 months and still sleep inside air conditioning. You can be right for one day and lose your whole business. Somto said nothing. Because Bisi was not completely wrong. That was the uncomfortable part. Bisi came closer. How much is Faith's school balance? Don't. I am asking 86.5 and rent, Bisi. And your freezer? Somto's jaw tightened. Enough. Bisi sat again. I am not telling you to steal. You returned it. Fine. But if the man came himself to appreciate you, maybe collect appreciation and keep quiet. Every battle is not your own. Somto folded one of Faith's uniforms into a square. What if the money is to make me say what did not happen? Then don't sign, just collect. Somto looked at her. Bisi shrugged. What? His bad intention is not your problem. It becomes my problem when he later says the money was payment for something else. Bisi opened her mouth, closed it. Somto continued. And if I collect cash from him privately tomorrow, he can say I demanded money from the bank. What will I show? Bisi frowned. You think too much. No, I have been poor too long to think small. Faith looked between them. Auntie Bisi, Mummy always keeps receipts. Bisi pointed at the child. This is how family problems spread to the next generation. Faith giggled. Somto did not. The next morning, Atlantic Crest called again. This time they asked Somto to come to a formal statement session at 1 o'clock. She spent the morning selling from the worst location, then changed out of her apron before going inside the bank. She wore a plain burnt orange blouse and navy trousers. Nothing fancy. Clean, pressed, decent. She refused to arrive looking as if she had dressed to plead. At reception, she was handed a visitor card. Tola met her on the 3rd floor. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Tola looked tired, not the dramatic kind, just the kind that sat behind the eyes and made somebody blink slower. You will meet with security review and operations. Sunny? Yes. Somto nodded. Tola handed her a printed statement. They prepared this from your interview. Please read and sign if accurate. Somto did not take the pen. She took the pages. The statement was 3 pages long. She read slowly. Sani was already seated across the table. He checked his watch twice. Mrs. George sat beside him. Take your time, she said. Somto intended to. Halfway down page 2, she stopped. Who wrote this sentence? Sani looked up. What sentence? Somto read aloud. I observed the pouch unattended for an unknown period before I retrieved it. She placed the paper down. That is not what I said, Mrs. George leaned over. It reflects that you do not know how long it was outside. No, it says I observed it for an unknown period. That is a reasonable summary. It is not. Sani spoke. Madam Somto, you are focusing on wording. Because wording is what I am signing. He leaned back. What do you want it to say? Somto pointed at the sentence. I know when I saw it. I do not know what happened before I saw it. Mrs. George nodded slowly. That can be amended. Somto continued reading. Near the bottom, another line said she had found the pouch, near the public access road adjacent to the bank. She tapped it. No. Sani's eyes hardened. It is adjacent to the bank. I found it beside the service lane. The service lane connects to the public road. Then right service lane. Why does that matter so much to you? Somto looked at him. Why does it matter so much to you not to write it? Mrs. George shifted in her chair. For a moment, nobody spoke. Tola stood near the door holding a folder. She looked at Somto, then at Sani. Sani smiled without warmth. You are not on trial here. Then stop writing a confession for me. Mrs. George raised one hand. Let us not use language like that. Nobody is asking you to confess to anything. Good, then write only what I said. They changed the sentence, then another, then the location. Somto initialed each amendment. When they gave her the final copy, Sani said, You can sign now. Somto signed. Give me a copy. It will be filed internally, he said. I need a copy of what I signed, Mrs. George looked at him, then at Somto. She can have a copy. Sani's jaw moved. Tola photocopied it. Somto slipped the pages into a transparent file she had brought from home. Sani watched. You came prepared. Yes. People might think you expected trouble. Somto stood. I did not expect trouble when I found the pouch. She picked up her handbag. I expected trouble after I met you. Tola inhaled sharply. Mrs. George looked down at the table. Sani's face stayed still. Somto left. In the corridor, Tola caught up with her again. This time, Somto did not stop walking. You should not provoke him, Tola whispered. Somto pressed the lift button. Then tell him to stop provoking facts. That is not what I mean. I know what you mean. The lift doors opened. Somto stepped inside. Tola did not. Before the doors closed, she said, the receipt should not be a problem. Somto frowned. What? Tola looked over her shoulder. Then she stepped into the lift at the last second. The doors closed. For 3 floors, they stood side by side without speaking. When the lift passed the 2nd floor, Tola said quietly, the seal number you asked me to write. Keep the original receipt safe. Somto looked at her. You already told me. Yes, so why are you telling me again? Tola swallowed. Because yesterday I saw a report that described the pouch differently. Somto's body went still. How differently? I cannot discuss internal documents. Then why are you discussing them? Tola closed her eyes for half a second. When I received the pouch from you, the seal was intact. I wrote that myself. Yes. The incident report says it was returned after possible external tampering. The lift reached the ground floor. The doors opened. Neither woman moved. Somto spoke first. Who wrote the report? Tola's eyes told her before her mouth did. I cannot say. Sani? I cannot say. The doors began to close again. Tola pressed the open button. Please go. Somto stepped out, then turned. Tola, yes? Do you still have your own record of the seal? Tola did not answer. But the color left her face. The doors closed between them. That evening, Somto took the receipt out of her file and placed it on the table. Faith was asleep. The room was quiet except for the standing fan clicking each time it turned left. Somto studied the paper under the yellow kitchen bulb. Time 9:24 Found, beside service lane, seal intact. Serial AC77419Q. Received by Sani Johnson, witnessed by Tola Adebayo. 2 signatures. Somto took another photograph. Then she scanned it using a free phone app and emailed the file to herself. She sent a copy to BC with one message. Keep this. Do not forward it, BC replied immediately. What is this one now? Somto typed. Just keep it. Then she opened her notebook. Not a fancy ledger. A school exercise book with Faith OSU written on the cover and crossed out. Somto had been using it for sales. She turned to a clean page and wrote, Wednesday, 9:17, found pouch beside service lane. 9:24, handed over. Seal intact, receipt issued. 12:10 approx, questioned. 4:35, Sani came to stand. Offered envelope. Asked me to change location and time. Thursday, vending access suspended after bank contact. Friday, statement had wrong wording. Corrected before signing. Tola said report mentions possible tampering. She read the list. Then she added one more line. Sani knows about Faith's school fees. Somto put the pen down. That was the line she disliked most. Not because it proved anything. It proved nothing. But it meant somebody had looked at her life closely enough to know where hunger could be pressed. The next Monday, Faith came home without her volcano. Somto heard her before she saw her. The child's key scraped twice against the lock. Then the door opened. Faith walked in carrying only her backpack. Where is Professor Volcano? Somto asked. Faith shrugged. They did the exhibition. You did not bring yours? No, Somto had spoken to the school. They had given her until Friday for the main balance, but the activity fee deadline had passed. She knew this. Still, seeing Faith without the cardboard mountain landed differently. Did your classmates ask? One person. What did you say? That mine was not ready. Somto looked at her daughter. Faith looked away. That was the first lie Somto had heard her tell about money. Small lie. Protective lie. The kind children learn when they notice adults are embarrassed on their behalf. Somto went to the kitchen. Faith followed. Mummy, it is okay. I know. I don't even like Volcano again. Somto opened the cupboard, then closed it without taking anything. Faith. Yes? Don't do that. Do what? Don't throw away something you like because money blocked you from it once. Faith stared at the floor. Somto crouched until they were level. Your volcano was ugly. Faith's head snapped up. Somto kept a straight face. Very ugly. The trees were falling. That was erosion. And the mountain looked like moi. Faith burst out laughing. Somto pulled her close. The laugh lasted only a few seconds. That was enough. Later that night, Somto counted what she had lost since the bank restricted her selling spot. Not guesses. She used her sales book. Average weekday revenue at the old location. Average at the new one. Spoiled stock. Transport difference. The gap hurt to look at. She wrote it anyway. The next morning, she went to the bank's website on her phone. She searched for complaint contacts. There was a general customer service line, another for ethics and conduct, another for confidential reporting. Somto hesitated. She was not an employee. Then she thought of Sani's envelope, her suspended stand, the statement that tried to move the pouch away from the service lane, Tola's face in the lift. Somto opened a new email. Subject: Rekorov Bank Property and request to preserved facts. She did not write like a lawyer. She wrote like herself. My name is Somto Nwosu. I am a food vendor near Atlantic Crest Bank. On Wednesday at 9:17 a.m., I found a sealed bank pouch outside the service lane and returned it. I was issued a receipt showing the seal intact. After this, I was asked by Mr. Sani Johnson to change the location and time in my account. He offered me an envelope which I did not accept. My vending access was later suspended after communication from the bank. During a later statement session, wording I did not agree with was included and I requested corrections before signing. I am asking that the bank preserve all records relating to the pouch, my handover, my interviews, and any communication about my vending access. I am also asking that my original statement and the attached receipt be kept as part of the record. She attached photographs, the original video, the suspension note, her signed statement copy. She read everything twice, then she added, I do not know what happened before I found the pouch. I am not accusing anyone of what I do not know. I am only recording what happened to me and what I was asked to change. That sentence mattered to her. She did not want to become what they were trying to make her. Someone who said more than she knew. She pressed send. For the first time since the rain, Somto stopped trying merely to survive the bank's questions. She had created a record they could not quietly rewrite. The reply came 6 hours later, not from customer service, from an address marked Risk Review. Dear Ms. Nwosu, your report has been received. Please preserve all original records and avoid altering or deleting any relevant messages, photographs, or videos. A reviewer may contact you for clarification. Somto read the email while standing beside a pot of tea. The word preserve made her sit down, not because it was dramatic, because it was the first word from the bank that did not make her sound like the problem. She printed the email at a business center that evening. The young man at the counter glanced at the subject line. Madam, bank issue. Print 2 copies. He did. She paid with 300. Somto wrote the amount in her notebook. Even protecting yourself had expenses. 2 days passed. Then 3. Nothing visible changed. She still sold from the worst location. Sani did not approach her again. That silence made her more alert, not less. On Friday afternoon, a man called. Am I speaking with Miss Somto Nwosu? Yes. My name is Yusuf Bello. I head a risk review team for Atlantic Crest. I am calling about the report you submitted. Somto moved away from the road noise. Okay, I would like to meet you. Not at the branch where the incident happened. Where? Our corporate office in Ikoyi. If that is inconvenient, we can arrange a neutral location. Somto almost said the corporate office was fine. Then she remembered transport. If I leave my stand, I lose sales. A pause. That is fair. What time do you finish? 3:30, if there are customers. 4:30 tomorrow? Tomorrow is Saturday. I know. Somto frowned. Do bank people work Saturday? Risk people work when operations people make us work. She did not laugh. Yusuf did. 4:30, he repeated. 4:30 the next day. She met him in a small conference room, in a building with less polished marble than Atlantic Crest's branch, and far fewer framed photographs. Yusuf was in his early 50s. Deep navy suit, pale blue shirt, no tie. He wore reading glasses low on his nose and did not smile much. He began with a sentence Somto respected. I do not know yet whether anyone did anything wrong. She nodded. Good. His eyebrows lifted. Good? Yes. At least you did not start by saying nobody is accusing me. Yusuf looked at her over his glasses. Has somebody said that to you many times? Enough for me to know accusation usually follows. He made one note. Then he asked her to tell the story from the beginning. Somto did. He interrupted only when he needed exact separation between what she saw and what she assumed. You saw the white van leave? Yes. Did you see anybody drop the pouch? No. Did you see the pouch fall from the van? No. Did Mr. Johnson say the money in the envelope was from the bank? He called it appreciation. He did not say the bank approved it. Did you see how much was inside? No. Did he explicitly say, I will pay you if you change your statement? No. Somto paused. He put the envelope down. Then he said there was a small issue with my statement. Location and time. Yusuf nodded. That distinction matters. I know. He looked up. You do? I have spent 1 week learning that every small word matters to your people. The corner of his mouth moved. Unfortunately, yes. He asked to see the original receipt. Somto did not hand it to him immediately. I brought a copy. I would like to inspect the original. Here. She placed it flat on the table but kept 2 fingers on one edge. Yusuf looked at her hand. I am not taking it. Good. He bent closer to read the seal number. AC 77419Q. Yes. He photographed it with a work phone, showing her the screen afterward. Then he pushed the receipt back toward her. Keep it. Somto almost smiled. You too? Me too what? Everybody keeps telling me to keep this paper. Then perhaps it is an unusually popular paper. She did smile this time. Yusuf asked about her vending suspension. She showed him Mr. Daniel's note and the before and after sales figures. He studied the handwritten numbers. You track daily revenue? Yes. For taxes? Somto laughed. For hunger, he waited. If I do not know what I sold today, she explained, I will buy nonsense tomorrow. Bread looks small until 20 loaves remain unsold. Yusuf nodded. Can I copy these pages? Yes, only the relevant ones. Understood. They spoke for almost 90 minutes. At the end, Yusuf closed his notebook. One more question. Why did you insist on a receipt that morning? Somto leaned back. Because I knew what would happen if something went wrong. You expected fraud? No. What did you expect? She thought for a moment. I expected that if there was trouble, the bank would have more people than me. Yusuf did not write that down immediately. He looked at her. Then he did. When Somto left the building, it was already dark. She bought roasted corn by the roadside and ate half in the bus home. For the first time in days, she felt something close to relief. Not safety, relief was smaller. Useful things often were. At Atlantic Crest, Tola was having a worse evening. She had spent the week pretending not to see the change in the incident file. That was the ugly truth. She had not forged anything. She had not taken money. She had not moved the pouch. But she had seen 2 versions of a record and told herself she was junior staff. Junior staff were always advised to observe process. In Tola's experience, observe process often meant watch something questionable until a more senior person decided whether it was officially questionable. On Monday morning, Risk Review sent a preservation notice. No one in the branch was allowed to delete or amend logs connected to the escrow pouch. Sani read the notice twice, then called Tola into his office. Sit. She sat. He closed the door. Did you speak to the vendor? Tola's mouth went dry. I interacted with her during the handover. I did not ask that. No, sir. Sani watched her. You know how these things happen. Someone outside misunderstands internal language. Then people panic and create a bigger issue than necessary. Tola said nothing. Sani leaned back. You are still on probation, correct? Yes, sir. Your confirmation review is next month. Yes, sir. He nodded, as if they were discussing weather. I have always considered you promising. Tola looked at the framed certificate behind him instead of his face. Thank you, sir. Good. Promising staff understand context. He slid a printed page toward her. It was a chronology of the incident. The line for 924 read, "Pouch returned to branch after unknown external exposure. Condition could not be independently verified at first receipt." Tola's eyes stayed on the sentence. "Sir, I verified the seal." Sani folded his hands. "You made a visual observation. I recorded the number." "Yes, and you signed on a handwritten note that was never part of controlled incident documentation." Tola looked up. It became part of the record when she submitted it. The room went quiet. Sani's voice changed. "Not louder. Flatter. Be careful." Tola heard Somto in her head. "You be careful what you ask poor people to sign with their hunger." She hated that the line came back now. Sani tapped the chronology. "You are not being asked to lie. You are being asked to recognize that what you observed does not establish prior condition." "That is true. Good. But this says the condition could not be verified at first receipt." "I did verify what I saw at first receipt." Sani stared at her. Tola stared back. Her legs felt weak beneath the table, but her voice did not shake. Finally, Sani pulled the paper back. "You can go." Tola stood. At the door, he said, "Tola." She turned. "People who want long careers learn the difference between fact and unnecessary detail." Tola nodded once. Then she left. She walked straight to the ladies' room, locked herself in a cubicle, and sat on the closed toilet lid. Her hands were trembling. She opened her phone, not to call Somto. That would be stupid now. She opened the bank's ethics reporting page, then closed it, opened it again, closed it. For 10 minutes, she did nothing useful. At last, she stood, washed her face, and returned to her desk. Fear did not disappear because a person decided to act correctly. Sometimes fear simply came along. At 2:08 p.m., Tola sent a short internal note to Risk Review. "I was present at initial handover of the pouch and recorded the seal as intact. I have concerns that later wording may not accurately describe what I observed. I am available to provide my contemporaneous notes." She read it once, then pressed send before courage had time to resign. Yusuf received the note at 2:11. By 4 o'clock, the review widened. The problem was no longer Somto's honesty. It was the timeline. The pouch had belonged to a corporate escrow release scheduled that morning. It contained signed originals, control references, and authorization material used to verify a high-value instruction. The money itself remained in regulated accounts. The documents were part of the chain that allowed release. According to normal movement logs, the pouch had been prepared in a controlled operations room shortly before 9. According to the courier register, it should have remained inside until a verified pickup. According to Sani's first written account, a courier handling error caused the pouch to leave the building unintentionally before it was recovered farther down the public access road. According to Somto's video, it was beside the service lane at 9:17. According to Tola's receipt, it was back inside by 9:24 with the seal intact. And according to a digital access record, something stranger had happened. At 9:06, an override had been used to release the pouch from the controlled room. The override belonged to Sani's credentials. That did not prove Sani personally carried it outside. It did not prove fraud. It proved his account required an explanation. Risk Review asked for one. Sani supplied it quickly. He said he had authorized a staff member to resolve a courier mismatch. Which staff member? A temporary operations assistant named Delay. Delay was called in. He looked terrified before anybody accused him of anything. He admitted carrying the pouch toward the service lane because Sani told him the courier was waiting outside. "Did you hand it to the courier?" Yusuf asked. "No, sir." "What happened?" "I received a call from Mr. Johnson. He told me to return because the courier reference was wrong." "And the pouch?" Delal's face tightened. "I thought I put it on the trolley while I answered the call." "Thought?" "When I turned back, it was not there." "Did you report that immediately?" "No, sir." "Why?" "Mr. Johnson told me not to raise alarm. He said security would recover it." Yusuf removed his glasses. "What time was this?" "After 9, before 9:17, I think so." "Think or no?" Deal swallowed. "My call log will show." It did. 9:11 a.m. The call lasted 48 seconds. That still did not prove a criminal plan. but it removed the story of an accidental courier departure. Then the review found the second instruction. At 9:38, while the original pouch was already back inside the building, a replacement release request had been drafted in the system. The reason field said original documentation missing in transit. Original documentation missing in transit at 9:38. 14 minutes after Somto's signed receipt said the original documentation had been returned. Yusuf stared at the timestamps. There are moments in an investigation when one fact does not merely add information. It changes the question. Until then, Risk Review had been asking whether poor handling created an opportunity for fraud. Now they had to ask whether the poor handling had been created for the fraud. Somto did not know any of this yet. All she knew was that 3 days after meeting Yusuf, estate security called her. "Madam Somto, you can return to your old spot tomorrow." She was standing in a market buying onions. She stopped beside a pile of tomatoes. Why? The restriction has been lifted. By who? Management. Which management? The supervisor sighed. "Ah, madam, Mr. Daniel, I am asking because the same management removed me. Atlantic Crest sent another communication. The bank no longer requests restriction. Can you write it?" There was silence. Then Mr. Daniel laughed. "You want paper again?" "Yes. Come tomorrow morning." Somto smiled. "Thank you." The next morning, she returned to her usual place. The young security guard who owed her for bread and egg came over before 7. "Madam Somto, welcome back. You still owe me." He put both hands on his chest. "After everything happening in this life, that is what you remember." Yes, he paid. Cash, exact amount. Somto held it up to the light. "Why are you checking?" he protested. "Character development." He laughed so loudly a passing banker turned to look. For one morning, life felt normal. Then Sani arrived. He came through the staff entrance at 8:06, wearing a dark green tie instead of ruby red. Somto noticed because she had become irritatingly aware of him. He saw her stand, stopped, then walked over. The guard disappeared with impressive speed. Sani stood across from Somto's table. "I see you are back." "Yes, congratulations." "For being allowed to work where I was already working?" He looked at the breadbasket. "You filed an ethics report." Somto kept wrapping a customer's order. "I filed what happened. You gave them my name. You gave me your name when you signed the receipt." The customer looked between them, suddenly very interested in his bread. Sani waited until the man walked away. "You are making a serious mistake." Somto put the cash into her tin. "Which one? You have no idea what you are involving yourself in. That is why I only wrote what I know. You think a photograph and a handwritten note make you untouchable?" "No." "Then what exactly do you think you are doing?" Somto finally looked at him. "I am making sure if you touch me, there is a record." His face changed, just slightly. Then he nodded. "Very well." He turned to leave. "Sonny," he stopped. Somto rarely used his name without title. "Do not ask anybody about my daughter again." Sonny looked back. "I never did. Good." She returned to slicing bread. "Then we understand each other." He walked into the bank. At 10:40, Risk Review disabled his access to the escrow operations platform, pending further investigation. By lunch, he knew, and that was when the pressure stopped being quiet. That evening, a message arrived on Somto's phone from an unknown number. "You think you are smart. When this case remember you started it." Somto read it once. She did not reply. She took a screenshot showing the number and timestamp. Then she forwarded it to Yusuf. His response came within 5 minutes. "Do not engage. Preserve the original message. If you receive a direct threat or anyone approaches you in a way that makes you fear for your safety, contact the appropriate authorities and let me know." Somto stared at the phrase appropriate authorities. It was careful language. No billionaire promise. No, I will deal with him. Just a line between bank review and personal safety. She respected that too. Then another message came from the unknown number. "Your video does not show we just put the bag there." Somto's thumb hovered over the screen. This time she almost replied. Almost. Instead, she put the phone face down. The message was correct. Her video did not show who put the pouch there, and that meant whoever sent it was afraid she thought it did. Somto opened her notebook and wrote, "Unknown number. Says video does not show who put bag there." Then she added, I never said it did. That small distinction would matter later. 2 mornings later, Yusuf called before Somto had finished frying the first batch of akara. I need you to come in today. His voice was different, more formal. Somto turned the heat down. Is there a problem? There is a new allegation. I would rather you hear it in a structured meeting than through rumor. Her stomach tightened. What allegation? I will explain when you arrive. Tell me now. A pause. Someone has alleged that you may have had prior contact with the temporary operations assistant who carried the pouch outside. Somto stared at the oil. Dale? You know his name? No, you just said temporary operations assistant. I guessed from what people outside are saying. That is precisely why I want a proper meeting. Can you come by 2? Yes. She ended the call. The akara in the pan had gone too dark. Somto lifted them out anyway. She stared at the burnt batch, then dropped every piece into a bowl marked home. She would eat the loss herself. At 1:30, Bissy arrived to watch the stand. You are not going alone. I am going to a bank office, not Bush. Bush has fewer lawyers. Somto gave her a look. I will call you when I finish. Bissy pointed a spoon at her. And record everything. I cannot secretly record people just because you watched one crime film. Then carry your receipt. Somto patted her bag. Already, Bissy shook her head. This paper has become your second child. At least this one does not ask for school fees. That made Bissy laugh. Somto did not. The meeting at the corporate office included Yusuf, a woman from internal legal, another investigator, and Somto. No Sani. Yusuf placed a still image on the table. It was from CCTV. Somto recognized herself immediately, burnt orange blouse beneath her sky blue apron, head bent, one hand reaching toward the black pouch. The frame made the scene look worse than the memory. A single still photograph could make picking something up look like stealing it. The legal woman said, This image has been circulated internally with an allegation that you approached the pouch before raising any alarm. I did. The investigator looked up. You approached it? Yes. How else would I read the label? Did you touch it before your video? No. The woman slid a second image across the table. It showed a man near the service lane 20 minutes earlier. Somto looked. No idea who he is. Are you certain? Yes, that is Delhi. Okay. Mr. Johnson has suggested you may have seen or spoken with him before the pouch was found. Somto leaned back. Suggested based on what? A witness statement says you had previously sold food to him. Somto blinked, then laughed once. Not because it was funny, because the allegation was almost elegant in its stupidity. I sell food outside a bank. Yes. Maybe I sold food to half your staff. That does not answer whether you sold food to him. I don't know. You don't remember him? No. Somto pointed at the still image. Do you remember every person who sold you water last month? The investigator did not answer. Yusuf intervened. The question is not whether ordinary customer contact is suspicious by itself. We need to establish whether there is evidence of coordination. Somto looked at him. Is there? Not at present. Then why am I here? Because an allegation has been made, and because I do not want us deciding what you should say before asking you. That answer settled her slightly. The legal woman asked, Do you have records of your sales? Somto almost smiled. Some. She opened her bag. Out came the exercise book. Faith's old name still crossed out on the cover. The investigators stared at it. Somto flipped through pages. I write large orders and credit. Small cash sales, not always. Can we inspect it? You can inspect the dates around the incident. The investigator put on gloves. Somto raised an eyebrow. It is an exercise book. Not evidence from a murder. He looked embarrassed. The legal woman hid a smile. They found no entry for Dealey. That proved very little. Somto knew it and said so. I do not write every bread I sell. Yusuf nodded. Correct. They showed her another CCTV segment. This one had no sound. At 8:49 a.m., Somto was serving 3 customers. A man who turned out to be Dealey walked past. He did not stop. At 9:03, he came out through the service door, pushing a trolley with the black pouch. Somto's stand was visible in the far corner. She was facing away, pouring tea. At 9:11, Dale stopped near the service lane and answered his phone. At 9:12, he turned back toward the building. The pouch was no longer clearly visible on the trolley. The camera angle did not show whether he left it, dropped it, or whether it slid off. At 9:17, Somto walked into frame. She stopped several feet away from the pouch, looked around, took out her phone, recorded, then picked it up. The entire sequence lasted less than a minute. Somto watched herself on the screen. The investigator paused the footage. "Do you see anything inconsistent with your account?" "No." "Do you see why someone might question the timing?" "Yes." "How?" Somto pointed at the screen. "Because if you stop the video at the right place, you can make anything ugly." The investigator looked at her. She continued, "But if you play it, you can see I did not rush to the bag. I looked around, I recorded, then I picked it." The legal woman made a note. Yusuf said, "There is another issue." Somto's shoulders tightened. He opened a folder. "Mr. Johnson says you approached him after the first interview and asked whether there was a reward." Somto stared at him, then at the others. "That is a lie. Tell us what happened." "He came to my stand. In a black Toyota, he brought a brown envelope." "Can anyone confirm that? The fruit seller may have seen the car." "I don't know if she heard us." "Two dispatch riders were near the junction. Did you record the conversation?" "No." The investigator asked, "Did he give you the envelope?" "No." "Did you touch it?" "I pushed it back with one finger when it was on my table." "Could it have contained official reward paperwork?" Somto gave him a flat look. "In an unmarked envelope outside the bank after closing time?" He did not answer. Yusuf asked, "Why did you not include an exact cash amount in your complaint?" "Because I did not know it." "Why not guess?" Somto turned to him. "You keep asking me questions whose wrong answer would help somebody." Yusuf held her gaze. "Yes." The legal woman looked at him sharply. He continued, "Because I need to know whether your account changes under pressure." Somto's face tightened. "I have already been under pressure." "I know. No. You know it on paper." The room went quiet. Somto tapped the table with one finger. "My daughter missed her science exhibition because my sales dropped after your bank pushed me away. Somebody knew her school fees. Somebody came to my stand with money. Then I was told I might be involved with a man I do not know. You are testing whether my story changes. Fine, test it. But don't act as if the pressure started in this room." Yusuf sat back. "You are right. No speech, no defense, just that." Somto breathed through her nose. The investigator changed direction. "Do you still have the original video file?" "Yes." "Not forwarded through messaging apps?" "Yes." "Can we copy the original metadata?" Somto looked at Yusuf. "What does that prove?" "Creation time. Device. Whether the file was edited. Will you take my phone?" "No. We can make a forensic copy of that file in your presence, if you consent." Somto thought, then nodded. "Only that file, only that file." They did it while she watched. The metadata matched 9:17 a.m., no edit history. No prior saved version. Again, it did not prove who put the pouch outside, but it did something more useful. It made Somto's timeline harder to bend. The next piece came from a place Sani had not considered important: the bank's service gate camera. Not the main security camera. A smaller unit mounted inside the access vestibule to monitor staff badge entry. At 9:24, it captured Tola receiving the pouch from Somto. The image was sharp enough to show the tamper strip. The serial ending 19Q could be read after enhancement. More important, the seal line was unbroken. Yusuf placed the image beside Somto's handwritten receipt. Same serial, same time window, same condition. Then he placed Sani's incident report beside both. Returned after possible external tampering. Condition could not be independently verified at first receipt. The room went still. Somto read the three records. Her receipt, the camera image, Sani's report. "So he wrote that after he signed this?" she asked. "Yes, and people still think I am the problem." Yusuf did not answer immediately. "No," he said at last. "Not everybody." Somto looked at the receipt again. A cheap piece of paper torn from a notebook. Tola's handwriting, Sani's signature. The thing he had treated like an inconvenience now sat beside a corporate incident report and contradicted it line by line. But Yusuf was not finished. We still have to establish why the report changed. Somto frowned. Is it not obvious? It may be obvious. It is not yet proved. She leaned back. You people enjoy suffering. The legal woman smiled despite herself. Yusuf did not. Proof is slower than anger. That should be written on the wall of every bank. It would frighten customers. Somto laughed once. Then Yusuf's expression changed. There is another reason we asked you here today. Somto stopped smiling. We identified the number that sent you those messages. How? We did not access telecom subscriber records. The number appears in internal records because it was used previously as an alternate contact by one of our contracted service vendors. Who? A logistics subcontractor connected to the courier handling process. Somto felt the room narrow. Connected to Sani? We are investigating that. Did Sani send the messages? We cannot say that. Do you think he did? Yusuf took off his glasses. I am not going to give you an accusation I cannot support. Somto stared at him, then nodded. Fair. Annoying, but fair. The review moved quickly after that, because the internal records began to agree with each other. The replacement release request created at 9:38 had not merely been drafted. It had been routed toward a secondary approval queue associated with a beneficiary instruction change. That change would have redirected part of the escrow release through an intermediary account controlled by a vendor entity. The request never completed. Why? Because the original documentation had already been formally logged back inside the branch. The system raised a duplicate control exception. That exception existed because Tola had entered the seal number from Somto's receipt into a temporary recovery register. She had done it almost absent-mindedly after the handover, a junior compliance habit. One line in one register. It stopped the replacement process long enough for a senior approver to ask why an original missing-in-transit request existed when the original was marked recovered. At the time, Sani had explained it as timing lag. Then he tried to fix the paperwork around that explanation. The problem with fixing paperwork after an event is that old paperwork does not always cooperate. Tola's note, Somto's video, the gate camera, the override log, deals call record, the replacement request, the later incident report. None of them was the magical key. Together, they formed a door Sani could no longer close. Risk Review invited him to a formal interview. He arrived with counsel. Somto was not present. She did not need to be. For nearly 2 hours, Sani maintained that the duplicate request was a routine contingency prepared in case the originals could not be recovered. Why was a beneficiary instruction change attached? Vendor error. Why did the vendor contact number match the number that later messaged Somto? Coincidence or misuse by someone else? Why did his account say the pouch had left through a courier mishap when his own temporary assistant said Sani instructed him to carry it toward the lane? Operational shorthand. Why did he approach Somto privately? He denied it. Why was the first incident report inconsistent with the condition recorded at handover? Caution. He had an answer for everything. That was not the same as having a good answer. Still, Yusuf knew they needed more than contradictions before making the most serious conclusions. Then Tola asked to give a full statement. She arrived with her cobalt blue blazer, folded over one arm, and a flash drive she had not plugged into anything since the preservation notice. On it was a draft chronology Sani had emailed her before their office conversation. The email said, "Please align branch records to attached chronology for consistency before external escalation." The attached chronology included the sentence about condition not being independently verified. Tola's reply, sent before Risk Review became involved, was even more damaging because she had written, "Sir, my handover note record seal AC 77419Q is intact at 9:24. Should that be reflected?" Sani's response, "No. Your note was informal and does not establish prior exposure. Use approved chronology. That still did not prove theft, but it proved the later record was not an innocent memory error. It had been challenged at the time and corrected in the wrong direction." Tola sat across from Yusuf with both hands clasped in her lap. "I should have reported earlier." Yusuf did not comfort her. "When did you first believe the record was misleading?" she told him. "Why did you wait?" Tola looked at the table. I was afraid. Of what? Losing my job, my confirmation, being marked difficult. Yusuf nodded. Did anyone threaten you directly? Not exactly. Then tell me exactly what happened. Tola repeated Sani's words, promising staff understand context. People who want long careers learn the difference between fact and unnecessary detail. Yusuf wrote them down. Tola swallowed. There is something else. He looked up. The vendor Somto. What about her? When I told her to keep the receipt, she asked whether I still had my own record. And? I realized I had been relying on her to be braver than me. Yusuf waited. Tola's voice lowered. She had less to protect on paper, but more to lose in real life. I did not like what that said about me. Yusuf closed his pen cap. That is not evidence. I know. It may still be important. Tola nodded. By the end of that week, Atlantic Crest suspended Sani Johnson pending investigation and revoked his systems access. The bank's external forensic team was asked to trace the intermediary vendor entity and the attempted beneficiary change. Appropriate reports were prepared for the relevant financial and law enforcement channels. No sirens came screaming to the building. No handcuffs clicked in the banking hall. Real investigations were less theatrical. They were also harder to escape. The next Monday, Somto was asked to attend one final internal fact meeting. Yusuf did not tell her why. She arrived carrying the transparent file, receipt inside. Of course, when she entered the room, Sani was there. For the first time since the rain, they sat across from each other with people around them who were not reporting to him. His ruby-red tie was back. Somto noticed that too. A representative from Risk Review opened the meeting. This session is to clarify disputed facts in the record concerning Ms. Nwosu's handover and the subsequent contact between Ms. Nwosu and Mr. Johnson. It is not a criminal hearing. Somto liked that sentence. Clear boundary. They began with the handover. Sani's counsel argued that the seal appearing intact did not prove the pouch had never been opened before Somto found it. Somto nodded. That is true. Everyone turned to her. Sani looked surprised. Somto continued. I never said I knew what happened before I saw it. The investigator asked, Then what are you certain of? Somto opened her file. She removed the receipt. I am certain that I found it at 9:17 beside the service lane. I recorded it before I touched it. I am certain I gave it back with this seal on it. Tola wrote the number. Sani signed. She slid the paper across the table. Sani did not look at it. Somto pointed to his signature. You signed here. I signed receipt of the pouch. Yes, and later information created concern about possible exposure. Somto tilted her head. What later information? His counsel started to speak. Sani raised a hand. The full movement history. Somto looked at Yusuf. Does full movement history show the seal was broken? Yusuf answered carefully. No evidence currently before this review shows the seal was broken when the pouch was recovered. Somto turned back to Sani. So why did you need my location changed? I did not. You came to my stand. I spoke to you as a courtesy. With an envelope. No, Somto's eyes narrowed. No envelope. No, nothing in your hand. I do not recall any envelope. Somto looked at him for a long moment. Then she did something nobody expected. She laughed. Not loudly. One short laugh. Sani's face hardened. What is funny? Somto shook her head. You remember what road I should have found a bag on. You remember what time I may have seen it. You remember that I asked about reward. But you cannot remember whether you carried an envelope to my table. His counsel intervened. Mrs. Nwosu, please answer questions rather than argue. Somto nodded. Fine. Yusuf asked, why did you insist on the receipt? The same question again. This time Sani was listening. Somto placed both palms on the table. Because if I went home with nothing in my hand, tomorrow all of you could decide I never returned anything. Nobody spoke. She tapped the receipt. I did not know this paper would become important. I just knew my word would be easier to move than your records. Then she looked directly at Sani. So I asked you to make my word a record too. That was the moment his expression finally broke. Not because Somto had proved the whole fraud. She had not. Not because a crowd was watching. There was no crowd. It broke because every attempt to make her smaller had produced another document. Every document had narrowed his room to move. The woman he thought would be easiest to rewrite had become the one witness whose story had not changed once. The meeting ended without a dramatic verdict. That came in pieces over the following weeks. Sani remained suspended. The intermediary vendor link was referred for external investigation. Deal was cleared of intentional coordination after device, call, and account reviews supported his claim that he followed an improper instruction without knowing its purpose. He still received disciplinary action for failing to report the missing pouch immediately. Tola received a formal note recognizing her cooperation after the preservation notice, along with a separate discussion about why concerns should have been escalated sooner. Somto's name was removed from any internal suspicion note connected to the attempted release. And the $30 million. It never left the controlled accounts under the fraudulent replacement instruction. The transfer process was stopped before release. No bag of cash changed hands. No miracle happened. $30 million stayed where it was supposed to stay because enough ordinary records refused to agree with one dishonest story. Somto thought that would be the end. She was wrong. 3 weeks after the final fact meeting, Atlantic Crest invited her back. This time the invitation came from corporate affairs. That alone made her suspicious. She arrived at the Ikoyi office in her burnt orange blouse and navy trousers, the same combination she now wore whenever she expected somebody to use polished English against her. BC called it her bank fighting uniform. Somto called it clean clothes. The meeting room was larger than Yusuf's. A bowl of wrapped sweets sat in the middle of the table. Nobody touched them. 2 people from corporate affairs were there, along with Yusuf and a woman from legal. The corporate affairs director introduced herself as Mercy Daniels. She was warm in the careful way of someone who had attended courses about warmth. Miss Nwosu, first, the bank wants to acknowledge the integrity you demonstrated. Somto nodded. Mercy continued. We believe your actions prevented serious loss and helped identify weaknesses in an operational process. Somto looked at Yusuf. He gave nothing away. Mercy slid a folder across the table. We would like to recognize you publicly. Somto did not open the folder. How? A small media event. Photographs. A statement about honesty and community partnership. We would of course obtain your consent. There it was. Poor woman returns $30 million. Somto could already see the headline. Maybe a picture of her holding an oversized check. Maybe some executive standing beside her, smiling as if he had personally raised her. She asked, "Will the statement mention that the bank stopped me from selling?" Mercy's smile paused. The access restriction was implemented during a security review. Will it mention that the restriction was based on an internal request that should not have happened? The legal woman answered, "The bank has concluded that the communication to estate management was not appropriate under the circumstances. Will that be in the public statement?" Mercy folded her hands. "The focus would be on your positive action." Somto leaned back. Positive action for who? Mercy blinked. For the bank and the wider community. My positive action cost me sales. We understand that. My daughter missed a school exhibition. Yusuf looked down at his notebook. Mercy said, "We are very sorry to hear that." Somto's mouth tightened. "I told your people already." The room became less comfortable. "Good." Somto opened her bag. She took out copies of her sales pages. "I calculated what I lost while my access was suspended, not what I could have made in a perfect week. My normal average from the weeks before, compared with the place you pushed me to." Mercy looked at the pages. Somto placed Mr. Daniels' signed note beside them. "I also have this showing Atlantic Crest requested the restriction." The legal woman nodded slowly. "We have reviewed that issue. Then let us talk about that before camera." Mercy's expression sharpened, though her voice stayed smooth. "Are you saying you would not participate in any recognition?" "I am saying I will not help you tell a clean story about a dirty week." Nobody spoke. Somto continued. "I did not return the pouch so that people could clap for me. I returned it because it was not mine. But after that, your bank treated me like being poor. Meant I was already halfway to stealing. If you want to learn something from what happened, Learn that part too. Mercy looked at Yusuf. He finally spoke. She has a point. Mercy's eyes moved back to Somto. What would you consider an appropriate resolution? Somto had prepared for that question. She opened her notebook. BC had laughed when she saw the list the night before. You are going to negotiate with bank people using Faith's old exercise book. Yes. Buy one serious notebook. This one has survived more than their file. Now, Somto read from it. First, correct any record that suggests I was involved in the attempted transfer. That has been done, legal said. In writing to me, we can provide that. Second, compensate the income I can show I lost because of the vending restriction. Mercy nodded cautiously. That is under consideration. Third, write to estate management that the restriction came from an internal concern that is no longer valid, so they cannot later use it against me. Legal made a note. Fourth, if a vendor or cleaner or dispatch rider finds something belonging to your bank, there should be a proper receipt process. Not because the person argues until somebody tears paper from a notebook. Yusuf looked up. That recommendation is already in the control review. Somto pointed at him. Good. Mercy almost smiled. Anything else? Yes. Somto looked at all of them. One manager should not be able to call estate security and remove somebody's livelihood without written reason and review. That one created a longer silence. The legal woman spoke first. That involves third-party property management, but we can review our own escalation controls. Mercy said, Mrs. Nwosu, some of these are broader governance matters. Your individual recognition is separate. Somto shook her head. That is the problem. You want to separate everything that made your story ugly. Then take my honesty and put it alone on a poster. Yusuf covered his mouth with one hand. Somto could not tell whether he was hiding a smile. Mercy certainly was not. Still, she was professional. What if we address the personal loss and the governance recommendations separately, and any public recognition only happens after you review the exact wording, Somto thought. That is better, and if you do not approve the wording, no camera. Mercy nodded, understood. The meeting ended with no handshake photograph. Somto preferred it that way. 2 weeks later, Atlantic Crest sent her a written outcome. The bank acknowledged that the temporary vending restriction had been requested without sufficient basis, and that the communication should not have been made in that form. It reimbursed her documented lost income for the restricted period. Not a fortune. Enough to cover the real gap she had recorded, plus spoiled stock and transport difference. The bank also issued a separate discretionary recognition payment for returning the controlled pouch and cooperating with the review. Somto read the amount 3 times, then called BC. How much? BC demanded before saying hello. Good afternoon to you too. How much? Somto told her. The scream on the other end forced Somto to pull the phone away. Are you mad? I should ask you. Somto, do you know what you can do with that money? Yes. Buy a car. No, why? Because a car eats money even when it is parked. Okay. Buy land. Maybe later new phone. My phone works. Human being, enjoy something. Somto laughed. I will. How? I am buying a freezer. There was silence. Then BC said, Sometimes I wonder whether God gives money to the wrong personality. Somto laughed until her side hurt. The payment did not make her rich. That mattered. It solved problems, not life. She cleared Faith's school balance, paid 3 months of rent ahead, because she had learned that relief became freedom only when it survived the next due date. Bought a commercial freezer small enough for her business, but large enough to stop the daily ice expense. Replaced the wobbling table, opened a separate savings account, and put money inside before buying anything decorative. BC complained about that too. Even your reward has budget. Yes, you are exhausting. Thank you. Then Somto did something nobody around her expected. She registered for a weekend food handling course and a short bookkeeping program run by a small business center. BC stared at the receipts. You received money because you kept receipts, and now you are using the money to learn how to keep better receipts. Yes, this story is eating its own tail. Somto smiled. Help me carry the freezer. Faith's reaction was simpler. When Somto paid the outstanding school fees, She brought the receipt home and placed it on the table. Faith looked at it. Can I do science exhibition next term? If they do one, I will make volcano again. Somto groaned. No, a better one. No volcano in this house. I will make electricity. That one is even worse. Faith laughed. Then she looked at her mother carefully. Mummy? Did the bank give you the $30 million? Somto nearly choked on water. Who told you that? Daniel in my class. Said his father saw something online about a woman and 30 million. Somto put the cup down. No, they did not give me $30 million. Did you touch it? The money was not inside the bag. The bag had important documents. Faith frowned. Then the title people are lying. Somto stared at her daughter. The title people? You know, people that write things like woman 30 million. Somto started laughing. Faith was serious. Did you find the money or not? I found something that could have helped move the money. Oh, Faith considered this. That is less exciting. Yes, but you returned it. Yes. And somebody tried to steal the money? Somebody tried to make an improper transfer. The investigation is still not my business. Faith narrowed her eyes. You talk like bank people now. Somto threw a dish towel at her. The public recognition eventually happened, but not the way corporate affairs first imagined. There was no giant check. No banner calling Somto a hero. Atlantic Crest published a short community note acknowledging that a local vendor had returned controlled materials linked to a high-value transaction, and that her documented handover helped the bank identify control failures. The note also stated that the bank had strengthened procedures for recovered sensitive items and escalation involving third-party workers and vendors. Somto approved the wording because it did not call the incident a fairy tale. She refused an interview when one online page wanted her to say she never felt tempted. That one is not true, she told Bissy. Bissy looked scandalized. You were tempted? To imagine what money could solve, of course. You did not even open the pouch. Temptation is not only putting your hand somewhere. Bissy was quiet. Somto added, if I say I never thought about school fees when I saw that number, then I am turning myself into a church poster. I am not interested. That line never appeared online. Somto was glad. Some truths did not need a headline. At the bank, the control changes were boring enough that no social media page cared. Recovered sensitive packages now required a standard intake form with time, location, condition, serial or seal reference, receiving staff name and witness where available. Communications that could restrict access or livelihood of third-party vendors required written basis and a second-level review. Incident chronologies preserved original observations instead of allowing one manager to overwrite them with a single, approved version. None of those changes looked dramatic. That was precisely why they mattered. People often imagined fairness as a good person appearing at the right moment. A better system did not depend on good luck. Tola learned that painfully. Her probation review came the following month. For 3 days, she was convinced she would be dismissed. She was not. Her manager changed after Sani's suspension, and her confirmation was approved with a development note on escalation responsibilities. Yusuf called her into his office afterward. You look disappointed, he said. Tola blinked. I thought you were going to lecture me. I am, she sighed. He removed his glasses. You did the right thing eventually. Do not turn that into a flattering story about yourself. Tola looked down. I know. You waited because you were afraid. Yes, that fear was reasonable. She looked up. So was the responsibility. Tola nodded. Yusuf put his glasses back on. Next time, raise the concern earlier and document it properly. Courage is useful. Process is better. Tola almost smiled. Somto would like that sentence. Somto has enough sentences already. A month later, Tola walked past Somto's stand on her way to work. She stopped. Tea. 2 sugars, Somto asked. You remember? I remember debt and sugar. I have never owed you, then sugar. Tola laughed. Somto poured the tea. The new freezer hummed behind the stand. Tola noticed the upgraded table, the printed menu, the small laminated food safety certificate fixed to one corner. You expanded. A little. It looks good. Somto handed her the cup. Thank you. Tola paid, then stayed there. Somto looked at her. You want change? No. Then why are you standing? Tola took a breath. I never thanked you. For what? For. She stopped. Somto waited. Tola tried again. You were the one who had less protection, but you were more careful about the truth than all of us. Somto frowned. That sounds like something from a seminar. Tola laughed despite herself. I am serious. I know. Somto wiped the counter. You don't need to thank me for your own decision. I waited too long. Yes. Tola's smile vanished. Somto continued wiping. Then she looked up. But you still spoke. Tola nodded. Next time speak earlier. I will. Good. Your tea is getting cold, that was all. No hug, no speech about friendship. Tola went to work. Somto sold breakfast. Some relationships did not need to become bigger to become real. As for Sani Johnson, his case did not end in one cinematic afternoon. The bank terminated his employment after completing its disciplinary process. External investigation into the attempted transaction and associated vendor relationships continued beyond Somto's involvement. She was asked to preserve her records and provide testimony if required. She did. Then she stopped following rumors. One vendor said Sani had fled the country. Another said he had powerful relatives and nothing would happen. A dispatch rider swore he had seen Sani at a hotel in Abuja. BC brought every news story to Somto. Somto eventually told her, if it is not on paper and it does not need me, leave it. BC shook her head. See what this bank has done to you? No. Poverty did this one long before the bank. Before the year ended, Somto attended the bookkeeping course she had paid for with part of the recognition money. The first Saturday nearly sent her home. The facilitator, a woman named Mrs. Coker, wrote 3 words on a whiteboard. Revenue, cost, poof it. Somto stared at them. She had been running a food business for almost a year. She knew those things with her body. Revenue was the money that made the cash tin look full at noon. Cost was the reason the tin looked insulting again after market. Profit was whatever survived both. Still, seeing the words separated made something click. Mrs. Coker asked everyone to calculate 1 week of actual profit. A man who sold shoes groaned. A woman who made cakes said, Madam, if we calculate too well, some of us will cry. The class laughed. Somto did not. She opened Faith's old exercise book. Mrs. Coker walked past, stopped and looked down. You keep daily sales? Yes. Stock cost. Most days. Transport. Somto hesitated. Not properly. Gas? Ice? Spoilage? Packaging? Somto looked at the page. Mrs. Coker smiled. That is why turnover can lie to you. The sentence irritated Somto because it was true. For the next hour she rebuilt one ordinary week. Bread, eggs, oil, tea, sugar, nylon, gas. Transport. Ice, food that spoiled. Small credit she never recovered. Her supposed profit became smaller with every line. At the end, Somto stared at the number. This business has been insulting me quietly. The woman beside her laughed so hard she had to put down her calculator. But Somto learned something useful. The same habit that had protected her at the bank could protect her from herself. A record was not only for fighting dishonest people. Sometimes it was for seeing what wishful thinking had hidden. She started separating business money from household money. Not perfectly. Life did not always respect categories. A sick child could turn business reserve into clinic money before breakfast. But now, Somto knew when she was borrowing from the business instead of pretending the money had simply disappeared. She changed her prices on 2 items after realizing she had been selling them almost at cost. One regular customer complained, Madam Somto, everything is increasing. Yes, reduce small for me. No, you have bank reward now. Somto looked at him. Then go and buy breakfast from the bank. The people nearby burst out laughing. The customer paid. A few weeks later, the school announced another science activity. This one was not an exhibition. The children had to build a simple project showing how something worked. Faith chose a basic electric circuit. Somto objected immediately. No fire. There is no fire. No wire entering socket. Mummy, it is battery. No experiment that will send us to hospital. Faith rolled her eyes with the confidence of a child whose school fees were now paid. They bought a small battery holder, bulb and switch from a stationery and electronics shop. Faith assembled the project at the same kitchen table where the old volcano had once stood. When the bulb finally came on, she shouted so loudly Bissy came from the next room. "What happened?" "Electricity!" Faith cried. Bissy looked at the tiny glowing bulb. "This is what you people are shouting for?" Somto stood behind Faith with both hands on her hips. "Yes, respect our infrastructure." Faith carried the project to school the next day. No excuse. No lie about it not being ready. That evening, she came home with a paper certificate for participation. It was not a prize. Her project did not win anything. Faith still stuck the certificate on the wall. Somto left it there. She had learned not to confuse value with winning. The bank case had taught her the same lesson in a harsher way. Somto was not interested in watching a man lose every last thing he owned. That was not the point. She wanted the record to show what he had done, the system to stop giving him access to repeat it, and the people harmed by his choices to stop carrying his consequences. Anything beyond that belonged to law, evidence, and time. Her own life had work waiting. By December, Somto moved from the folding roadside table into a small licensed kiosk inside the commercial estate. It was not large. 2 people could stand behind the counter comfortably. 3 people required negotiation. But it had a proper sink, a refrigerator, shelving, a lockable cash drawer, a small sign Faith designed on a laptop at school. Somto's morning table breakfast, tea, no credit after Friday. Somto tried to remove the last line. Faith protested. "It gives the brand personality." "Who taught you brand personality?" "Teacher Miriam. Tell Teacher Miriam to pay for signboard." Faith laughed and refused to change it. The signs stayed. On opening morning, Bissy arrived carrying balloons Somto had specifically told her not to buy. "You said no big celebration," Bissy explained. "These are small balloons." There were 20. "You are a troublesome person. I am family." Same thing. Mr. Daniel from Estate Security came by and paid for tea. The young guard who once owed Somto for bread and egg bought 2 packs and paid before collecting them. "See growth," Somto told him. "You will never forget that debt." Never. Tola came at 8. Yusuf came later, without his suit jacket, bought tea and akara, and insisted on paying the listed price. So Somto gave him no discount. He approved. Faith arrived from school in the afternoon and stood inside the kiosk, looking around as if her mother had built a supermarket. "Mummy." "We can put my next science project here." "No, there is space. No volcano." "I told you electricity. Especially no electricity." Faith laughed and opened one of the drawers. "What is this?" Somto turned. Faith was holding a transparent plastic sleeve. Inside it was a photocopy of the original receipt. Not the original. That remained in a safer file with the other case documents. Faith lifted the paper. "You still keep this?" Somto took it from her. "Yes." "Why?" Outside the kiosk, somebody called for 2 teas. A blender started at the juice stand next door. Cars moved through the estate gate. A generator coughed once before settling into a steady hum, ordinary noise. Somto looked at the photocopy. The handwriting had faded slightly at the edge where the original page had once been folded. 9:24 a.m., seal intact. C77419Q. Sani Johnson's signature. Tola Adebayo's signature. One little page that had once seemed almost silly to ask for. Somto slid it back into the sleeve, because that paper remembered what happened when some people wanted to forget. Faith considered the answer, then nodded as if filing it somewhere for later. "Mummy, customer is calling you." "I heard." Somto placed the sleeve in the drawer. Then she paused. There is a version of this story people like because it is simple. A poor woman saw a fortune and chose honesty. A bad man tried to cheat. The truth won. Everybody learned something. Life is rarely that neat. Somto was tempted by what money could solve. Tola was frightened enough to stay quiet longer than she should have. D followed an instruction he should have questioned. The bank made mistakes before it corrected them. Even Yusuf could not make truth move faster than evidence allowed. What mattered was not that good people were perfect. They were not. What mattered was what each person did when being truthful became expensive. Somto had no special power that rainy morning, no important surname, no rich relative waiting behind the glass doors. She had a phone, an old habit of keeping records, and enough experience to know that being right without proof can be a lonely position. So she asked for one piece of paper, not because she knew it would save $30 million, because she knew it might save her name. Outside, the afternoon light shifted across the kiosk counter. Somto took the next customer's money, counted the change twice, and locked the drawer when she was done. The photocopied receipt stayed inside.